Hello friends, how are you doing? And I hope you all are doing fine and great. Okay, so we were doing the NEET pattern exercise of the chapter Digestion and Absorption. We had discussed the part 1, the 5 questions, and today we will discuss the another set of 5 questions, right? So stool of a person contains whitish grey color due to malfunction of which type of organ? This is very simple. This might look a little complicated, but actually there is nothing in the question. Okay. So what we will write for this is, see, we all know that bilirubin and biliverdin, these are bile pigments, right? The bile pigments, these are the bile pigments, right? So both bilirubin and biliverdin are the bile pigments, and then what will we see, right? We all know bile is an alkaline fluid, right, or alkaline juice we can say, rather than calling it as the fluid. So bile is an alkaline juice which does not contain any enzymes, right? So bile is an alkaline juice which does not contain any enzymes, and it is secreted in the liver, and stored by gallbladder. Right. So these two bile pigments, bilirubin and biliverdin, right, these are important. Okay, we all know that the increase of concentration of bilirubin greater than 1 gram percentage, okay, is called as jaundice, where there will be yellowish discoloration of the, okay. So what we see, if this increases more than 1 gram percentage, then called as jaundice, where there will be yellowish discoloration of the skin, the mucous membrane, and the skin, the mucous membrane, the corneal, yes, even the conjunctive and will become yellow. Why? Because of the deposition of this bilirubin pigment. Okay, so bilirubin and biliverdin, that's what. Okay, we are a little diverting because these are very interesting topics, so we tend to get here and there. Bilirubin, biliverdin, bile pigments, and these bile pigments are stored by the gallbladder, secreted by the liver. Now what happens, this bilirubin breaks up into the stercobilinogen and urobilinogen, right? So what we will write is, the bilirubin breaks up into what? It breaks up into stercobilinogen and urobilinogen. Okay. So stercobilinogen and urobilinogen. Now this stercobilinogen is brown in color and is responsible of giving the feces its brown color, right? This stercobilinogen, this is brown in color and responsible, right? This is brown in color and responsible for giving the feces its brown color. Okay. So, stercobilinogen, urobilinogen, this is brown in color and given and responsible for giving the feces its brown color. So, we see, okay, that what will happen, stool of a person contains whitish grey. Now, this bilirubin will not break down properly into stercobilinogen, urobilinogen, and where does it happen? This also happens in the liver. Okay? This is also happening in the liver, and that is why we say that if the liver is malfunctioning, if the liver is not working properly, then we can say that yes, the stool of a person will be greyish white, because this pigment is stercobilinogen is not there, because the bilirubin is not breaking down properly, or maybe not that much amount of bilirubin is produced. There can be any reason. Say the amount of bilirubin is in the conjugated form, then again it will not break down into stercobilinogen, that is not in the free form. Say it's not breaking up into stercobilinogen, whatever is happening, it's all because of liver, because it is a liver which where this is happening. So, we can say yes, that the right answer for this is the liver. Okay. Now, we move on to the next question. Right. If pancreas is removed, the compound which remains undigested is, right. That means we have to see that the pancreas, the pancreatic juice, has enzymes for digestion of which all, right. The pancreas has, or we can say the pancreatic juice okay, the pancreatic juice has following, right, the pancreatic juice has following digestive enzymes. Right. First of all, we will talk about the pancreatic amylase. The pancreatic amylase, okay, pancreatic amylase, and this pancreatic amylase, this will be acting, okay, this acts on the carbohydrate. So, this acts on the carbohydrate and the starch, right. So, the pancreatic amylase will act on the carbohydrate and the starch. The next one what we will see is the pancreatic lipase, which will act on the fats and convert it into glycerol and fatty acids. Okay. The pancreatic lipase that acts on the fat, that acts on the fat and converts it into into pancreatic fatty acid and glycerol. Fatty acid and glycerol. Okay, so pancreatic lipase attacks on the fat and converts it into fatty acid and glycerol, and apart from that we will also see the other enzymes, trypsin, the chymotrypsin and the carboxypeptidase, right. So, trypsin, chymotrypsin and carboxypeptidase and carboxypeptidase that lacked, right, that lacked on the peptones and proteoses and convert them into peptides. So, trypsin, chymotrypsin and carboxypeptidase that lacked on the peptones and proteoses, right, and proteoses and convert them into peptides and convert them into peptides. So, trypsin, chymotrypsin and carboxypeptidase that will act on these on the peptones and proteoses and convert them into the peptides, right. So, this is what we mean. So, if the pancreas is removed, the compound which is undigested will be, the carbohydrates. Yes, so even the carbohydrates will not be digested. Why? Because the pancreatic amylase will not be there, the fats, the pancreatic lipase won't be there, the protein, the trypsin, the chymotrypsin and carboxypeptidase will not be there, right. So, hence the answer would be all of these will be affected if the pancreas is removed, right. So, now we move on to the next question. Now, we move on to the next question. The enzyme enterokinase helps in the conversion of, right. Now, this enzyme enterokinase right, pepsinogen into pepsin, trypsinogen into trypsin, casinogen into casein and proteins into the polypeptides, right. So, what we will see first of all, the enzyme enterokinase, it is an enzyme which converts the other inactive enzyme into the active enzyme. So, what happens, it will convert the trypsinogen into the trypsin, right. So, and this trypsin is an endoproteolytic enzyme that again will act on the the further proteins and convert them into smaller peptides. Okay. So, the enzyme enterokinase is acting, or the enzyme enterokinase, right, will act on trypsinogen and convert it into trypsin. Okay. So, the enzyme enterokinase will act on trypsinogen and convert it into trypsin, and so what we see, this trypsin will act, endoproteolytic enzyme and hence will act on the proteins. So, trypsin is an endoproteolytic enzyme, right. Trypsin is an endoproteolytic enzyme and will act on the proteins and will act on the proteins. Right. So, the answer, the enzyme enterokinase helps in the conversion of trypsinogen into trypsin. Right. Now, we move on to the next question. The Brunner's gland occur in the submucosa of the duodenum, the submucosa of the stomach, the mucosa of the esophagus, and the mucosa of the ileum. Right. Right. These Brunner's glands, these are branched tubular glands. Okay. The Brunner's glands are branched and tubular glands. So, the Brunner's glands are branched and tubular glands, and these are located and are situated in the submucosa of duodenum. Okay. So, the Brunner's glands are branched and tubular glands and are located in the submucosa of the duodenum. So, the answer for this would be this one, that is Brunner's glands occur in the submucosa of the duodenum. And now we will come on to the last question, that is the duct leading from the parotid gland and opening into the vestibule is called as which duct? Right. Let us take a small, a small background of these, of this. Okay, first of all, this we are talking about the parotid gland, and we all know that yes, parotid gland is a major salivary gland. Okay, so we have many major salivary glands and as well as minor salivary glands in our body. When we talk about the major salivary gland, we will see that there are 3 pairs of major salivary glands, okay, which are there in our body. These being the parotid gland, the submandibular, or which is also called as submaxillary, and the sublingual gland. Right. The major function of all these salivary glands is to secrete saliva. Now, the saliva will have both the the mucus content, right. It will have the both the it will be it should have both. Yes, it should be watery as well as it should have that mucus content to make it a little thick. However, it should not be that much ropey, and so based on that we say that this is a serous salivary gland, or this is a mixed salivary gland, or a mucous salivary gland. Okay, those salivary glands which which secrete only the mucus content are called the mucous salivary gland. Those which secrete more of the watery part, and why? Because this watery part will be more having enzymes and the other contents of the saliva. So, we call that as a serous salivary gland, right. However, the saliva which the gland which secretes both the mucus and the serous part is called as a mixed salivary gland. So, I can write this as there are 3 major pairs of salivary gland in a body, major pairs of salivary glands in our body. Okay, there are 3 major pairs of salivary glands in a body, and what are these? Parotid gland, which is the largest, and located at the angle of mandible just below the lobule of the ear. The parotid gland, which is the largest and located at the angle of mandible. At the angle okay, parotid gland, which is the largest and located at the angle of mandible, just below the ear lobule. So, which is the largest and located at the angle of mandible just below the ear lobule. Then the second one is the submandibular. The submandibular or submaxillary, right? Submandibular or submaxillary salivary gland. Submandibular or submaxillary salivary gland, right? And the third one being the sublingual salivary gland. Sublingual salivary gland. Right? So, the sublingual salivary gland will be located where the sublingual salivary gland will be below the tongue, okay, situated below the tongue. Below the tongue. And submandibular, the submandibular submaxillary will be located adjacent to the submandibular, okay, the submandibular ganglion, that is on the sides, just below the border of the mandible, just beside the border, that is, this is the border, right, just below the at the side of the border of the mandible, right. Now, we are talking about which duct. So, see, each of these major salivary glands have ducts, which will bring out the saliva, which will bring the salivary secretion and pour it into the oral cavity, right. Each of the salivary gland will have, right, each of the salivary gland will have ducts. To pour their secretion. So, each of the salivary gland will have ducts to pour their secretion into the oral cavity, into the oral. Each of the salivary gland will have ducts to pour the secretion into the oral cavity, right. These are, when we talk about the parotid gland, we will see that there is the Stenson's duct, and where will this Stenson's duct open? This will come right from here, okay, this will and then open just opposite the maxillary second molar on the inner side of the in the vestibular region, right. So, the parotid gland Stenson's duct, which opens opposite the maxillary second molar in the vestibular region, right, in the vestibular region. After the parotid gland, then we will see the submandibular gland, and these have the ducts of the Rivinus, duct of Rivinus, or you can say the Wharton's duct, okay, the Wharton's duct. Right, the Wharton's duct, and then after the parotid, the submandibular, the sublingual gland, which will have the Bartholin's duct, okay, the sublingual gland. Which will be having the Bartholin's duct. Right. So, hence these are the three ducts which we will see, okay, the parotid duct, the parotid gland having the the Stenson's duct, which will open opposite the maxillary second molar in the upper vestibular region, right. Then the submandibular, the submaxillary salivary gland, which will having the Wharton's duct, and the sublingual gland, which is the third major salivary gland, which will be having the this duct. Okay. So, what we the Stenson's duct, the Wharton's duct, and the Bartholin's duct, and that is what it's written, right. Then what we see that all of these ducts, as I told they carry the secretion into the oral cavity, the buccopharyngeal cavity, and among these the parotid gland is a major, okay, is a major and the biggest and the largest salivary gland, which we will be seeing here. Okay, the infraorbital duct is something related to the orbit. The Haversian duct and the Wolffian duct, we are not concerned with this right now, right, friends. So, with this we have come to the end of this question session. In the we will be meeting shortly in the next session, where we will be discussing about other questions. Thank you.